Hello. I hope you're able to find me. I tried to use a different streaming software tonight. It didn't work, so I had to connect using something different. So I might not be streaming in the normal place, but hopefully you're getting messages telling you where I'm streaming and you're finding me. So please let me know that you're here because I hope I didn't mess this up too much because I have a really great evening for you tonight. So I'm going to wait a few minutes and hope that everyone can find us here. And please say hello when you come in so I know that you're here. Um, I know this isn't streaming in the normal spot, so I am live on Facebook and YouTube, but probably not where you expected to see me. So on Facebook, I'm just on the Facebook page, and on YouTube, I'm in a different place than you might have expected to find me. So um, I hope that you're all finding me here. So I'm just looking around. It looks like something might have frozen. I hope the screen didn't freeze. Let me know if everything's okay. It's horrible to have streaming issues like this. Um, so it is extremely annoying. So I hope everybody can find me. I'm going to wait a couple minutes. My picture is frozen. So if you guys are watching, um, oh, my dog Rex is here. Hello, my dog Rex. Let's see. I hope other people are able to find us tonight. My um my picture keeps my picture keeps freezing here, so I hope it's doing better there. I usually have more people on YouTube, so I don't know what the problem is. Probably because I'm streaming in a different spot on YouTube than where people are expecting to see me. So I might just go over there. Oh, here we go. Here comes some people on YouTube. Oh, great. People are starting to find me. I mentioned before that I tried a new streaming software tonight. Of course, it didn't work. And so here I am, maybe in a little bit of a different place, but using the software I was using before. And that's what I get for experimenting. So please say hi. Let me know that you're here. My dog Rex is here. Ellen says everything looks good. Mrs. Healy, Mr. Davis is here. My rebel friends from Tennessee are here. Great. So people are streaming into the room. We're going to have a great time tonight going on a virtual tour of Colonial Wall Street. I'm hoping it will be lots of fun, really great. And those of you who have never taken a tour with me will get an idea of what it's like to be on a tour with me. Ms. Silver is here and Mr. Robbins is here. Excellent. And I think I have the chat settings set so that you can see each other's comments from from different platforms. Miss Frederick is here, who I'm going to be seeing in a couple weeks. I'm looking forward to that. Um, Rex says it took him 3 tries to get the show going. All my fault, totally. I apologize to everyone. That's what I get for trying to do something different, do something new, which didn't work. And of course, I try to do something new on a night where I'm doing something special as well. So in all, it's an interesting start. Mr. Telek says he has his walking shoes on. Great. We're going to have a great walk along Colonial Wall Street and look at some maps, some prints, hear some stories about people, and just in general have a really great time. Mrs. Healy says the tours she's been on were much warmer than tonight, much warmer than tonight. But I will tell all of you that I have, in my experience, done tours in the craziest weather you could imagine. I particularly remember calling some customers who were a group to cancel during a huge snowstorm. Hello, Mr. White. During a huge snowstorm. And they had a morning tour scheduled. I called them up and I said, look, I don't think we want to do your tour today because it's snowing so hard. And they begged me to still do the tour. They said it was their last day in New York City. Would you please do the tour for me? And I said, well, as long as the subway runs, I can do the tour for you. So we picked a time to meet and I met them. And we had a great time doing the Revolutionary War tour in blizzard-like conditions. We all laughed. We had a super great time. And so I've done tours in some really bizarre weather situations. Also extremely hot. I remember one year doing an overbooked July 4th tour, and it was 105 degrees, and the tour lasted 3 hours. And luckily, nobody fainted. So I've had all kinds of weather issues. Ms. Kane is here. Hello, it's nice to see you too. But tonight we're just going to pretend we're outside. The joys of 21st century technology. John the Beagle Dad is here. So I see people are finding the stream. That's excellent. I didn't mess up too much, but next week I will go back to streaming the old way I was streaming, although I do have another option. One of the reasons I'm trying new software for streaming is that I am running, I hate to say this, I am running out of money. When I moved, I had quite a bit of savings from my business and it's gone now. So I need to start making money. So if you're enjoying my tours, you're enjoying my live streams, please consider supporting me. A bunch of you, I know, I see you here, already do support me on Patreon, which is a really great way to support me monthly. You could also send me a one-time donation on Venmo or PayPal. If you're watching on YouTube, you can send me a super chat on YouTube down there at the chat box. Hit the little dollar button and you could send me a tip and tip me there if you'd like to. And if you'd like to join me on Patreon, I'm doing something really neat on Patreon right now for all of my subscribers. And that is, I am showing you my latest sewing project. Here's all the pieces all marked and ready to go. I'm making a brand new 18th century outfit, which will include a jacket, a beautiful petticoat of different fabrics, lace trim, piping. It's going to be a really exquisite outfit. And just for joining me, following me on Patreon, joining my monthly Patreon, you can watch me create this outfit step by step. So if you wonder what goes into making a reasonably elaborate 1780s looking outfit, come on over to Patreon and support me, and you'll see how I do that. So that's a great way to help me out. So if you're enjoying the streams every week, I hope you'll help me out. I'm going to be putting out some more regular videos on YouTube also. Now, I also wanted to tell you another reason I'm doing this little tour for you tonight is as a preview, because I'm in the process of recording all of my New York City walking tours, and I'll be releasing those for you to buy. So you can take those New York City walking tours that I was so famous for from the comfort of your own home, or they're also going to be structured where you could use the video as you're walking the tour yourself. So I'm working on making it something you could just watch at your leisure, or you could use to guide yourself through that tour. So those are going to be coming soon, and I'll be releasing those on Patreon. You can buy them on Patreon, or, you know, if you're a Patreon supporter, you'll get a little discount for that too. So keep your eye open for those. Also, I don't have it here with me. I should. Women's History Month is coming up. Theodosia Burr, teen eyewitness to the founding of the new nation. If you would like to get one of those for a lady in your life, young or older, you can always contact me at contact@patriottoursnyc.com. I'll sign it, personalize it, and get it off to you. And I don't charge that much for all of that. It's a beautiful book. I know a bunch of you have it. So let's start out with our tour of Colonial, New York City. Or tonight, we're only going to be doing Wall Street, because if we did the whole town, we would be here for hours, as many of you who took my tours in the past know. So we're going to start out with just a nice little map of Colonial New York City. This is what's called the Ratzer Plan of the city of New York. And it's just a little piece of the Ratzer map. And you can see some glare up there. This Ratzer map was drawn in, I think, about 1765. It is an enormous map, hand-drawn by Bernard Ratzer. You can see it's very beautiful and detailed. And this is from a picture I took in the map room of the New York Public Library. So if you're a New Yorker and you would like to see this beautiful map, you could go to the first floor map room. It's a beautiful room, and request the Ratzer Plan of the city of New York, and they'll get it out for you. It's a very delicate map, you know, so you have to sit in a special section and put all your stuff away. But the librarian allowed me to stand up on a chair and take a picture of it. She was very nice to me that day, because they got used to me being in there a lot. So this is the Ratzer Plan. Now up here is the top border of Colonial New York City, which today is Chambers Street. And the red star is where we are tonight at my home near Hanover Square. This is north to south on the southern tip of the island. And in 1765, when this map was drawn, our town was only about 1 square mile in size, about 3/4 of a mile long from the top of the Broadway to the base of the Broadway. I'm looking different here, backwards here, and about a half a mile across from the Hudson River to the East River. That is the entire colonial city of New York, with a population of about 25,000 smashed into a very small area. And you can see the island is surrounded by water, right? On one side, we have the Hudson River, the East River, and down here, New York Harbor. So all water all around us. The island to the north of Chambers Street is all rural or wooded. So all of the, most of the people are living down here on the southern tip of the island. If you took my Revolutionary walking tour, we started right up there. So we started there and walked all the way down through the town and ended up down here. It's a great tour. And as I said, that's all coming out on video for you, that whole walk. Well, tonight we're just going to stick with Wall Street because, as you can see, although it's a compact city, there's a lot in it to see and a lot of stories to be told. So if we went out of the door here at our home in Hanover Square, and we turned left and walked a block to Wall Street and then turned right, we would find ourselves at the Red Star here and at a dock called Murray's Wharf. And you can see that Wall Street looks straight uphill to Trinity Church, which is where we're going to be ending our little tour tonight. So we're just going to be walking along the length of Wall Street, talking about what's there. And you'll see there's plenty just on Wall Street to fill up our evening together. Wall Street, you can see, is paved. It is the only paved street in New York City at the time of the American Revolution. So Wall Street is the only paved street, gives you an idea of how important it was. And of course, it got its name for a wall because the original town of New Amsterdam had the northern border here at Wall Street. So if we were to go back, let's go back to our Ratzer map here. Wall Street is right there. And that is the northern border of the town. So from there south, it's the little village of New Amsterdam. And everything to the north is farmland and rural. So Wall Street got its name from that original wall. And you can see from the time the British took the island in 1664 to the time we're talking about 1774, 110 years, the city has grown all the way up to Chambers Street. So we've grown quite a bit in that time of British rule. Mr. Tellock would like to know what the street was paved with paving stones, and the paving stones came from the ballast of ships. So it's paved with paving stones. All of the other streets are dirt. Now this also goes uphill. Broadway is on a ridge that runs through the bottom of the island. So we're looking uphill as we say, up Wall Street. Interestingly though, the numbers run the other way. So if you're walking on Wall Street, number 1 is up here and the later numbers are down here. So people get confused if you're walking according to numbers. From here is you're walking down Wall Street, but if you're talking about geography, you're looking up Wall Street. You're looking up Wall Street, up the hill. And even I think in your time, if you're down here on a boat on the water, you can still see straight up Wall Street between all of those skyscrapers that are on either side now. So the star shows us Murray's Wharf, as I mentioned. And Murray's Wharf is one of the largest wharfs in the city, one of the most productive and one of the most lucrative, and is owned, you can probably guess, by the Murray family, who are originally from Ireland. John and Robert Murray, the brothers, own the company, and Robert and his wife, Mary Lindley Murray, live far north of here up in an area they call Eikelenburg, or for you, that would be Murray Hill, all the way up around where 26th Street is today in the East River. They have a beautiful estate called Eikelenburg, and this is their commercial wharf here. So we'll start here at the end at Murray's Wharf, or the beginning, depending on which way you're walking. So do I have a picture of Eikelenburg for you? I don't. So the Murrays live at Eikelenburg, and the Murray family is going to find itself in a bit of trouble in 1774. You might recall that as a result of the British occupying Boston after the Boston Tea Party, remember that? They threw all that tea into the harbor. England got extremely mad, and they withdrew Massachusetts charter. They put them under military rule, blockaded their port, and occupied them. As a result of that, all of us merchants in America, for the second or third time at that period, refused to do business with England, right? We called it a non-importation, non-exportation, non-consumption agreement, that we would not allow any ships to land in our docks from England We would not allow any goods from England to be unloaded, and we would not consume any goods, and we would not send them any raw materials as well. And every time we did this, choked off the finances of England because they're so dependent on trade with us. And we found it to be a very effective way of expressing our anger at them. You might recall the first time we did it was during the Stamp Act of 1765, and this caused the Crown to repeal the Stamp Act. So in 1774, we entered into another one of those agreements. And everyone, agreed we would do that, except the Murrays had a ship returning to New York called the Beulah. It was named for their oldest daughter. And on the Beulah were all sorts of goods that were banned by the non-importation, non-exportation agreement. And they had already paid them, right? So when we have goods that come into our shops in New York, we have already paid the place where they came from or the supplier of those goods. So we've already paid for those. And then we bring them in and we sell them, hopefully at a profit after we pay all of the duties that we have to pay on them as they enter into the port. And we pay them for what we hope will be a profit. Well, the Murrays had a ship full of goods they'd already paid for that they were not allowed to bring into the city to sell. And they wanted to try to sneak them in. So, oh, we have somebody new, 151 Gaming. Well, welcome to Mrs. Q's Thursday night salon. I'm very happy to have you at Mrs. Q Live. And we're talking about Wall Street during the Revolutionary War era. So the Murrays, or I shouldn't say Mrs. Murray was not involved with this. Of course, the Murray brothers, John and Robert Murray, were looking for a way to unload those goods from their ships. So they took it not far from here, right across the harbor in New Jersey to Elizabethtown, New Jersey, and they unloaded the ship in Elizabethtown. And they thought that they would get away with this. Unfortunately for them, the Sons of Liberty in New Jersey saw them do it, contacted their cohorts here in New York. And when the Beulah came in, of course, they tried to bring it in, now only with goods that were allowed. When the Beulah came in to Murray's Wharf, 500 protesting men were at the wharf, threatening everyone on board if they attempted to dock the ship or unload it. So this was a terrible, terrible situation for the Murrays and made us look terrible in New York because as word got out that they did this, it seemed that we in New York had broken the non-importation, non-exportation agreement when all of the other colonies had entered into it. And you might know that New York, we unfortunately have a reputation of being a bit renegade in that manner and often breaking ranks with the other colonies. So this was terrible for us when word traveled throughout the colonies that the Murrays did this. And Mr. Facemeyer is here from Manassas. Hello, Mr. Facemeyer. So the Sons of Liberty informed the Murrays that they were being banished from the city. That the only way that we could make things right with the other colonies was for them to leave. A terrible fate, right? Seems like an extreme fate. And well, Mrs. Murray, Mrs. John Murray, or Mary Lindley Murray, a great lady in her own right, I must say. Mrs. Murray is one of the wealthiest ladies in this city, and she is the very first lady to have had her own carriage. She also has the finest wine cellar in New York, bar none. And she is a lovely lady to meet and to know. Mrs. Murray, thinking this was a terrible fate to befall her family, wrote a letter to one of the leaders of the New York Sons of Liberty, Mr. Alexander McDougall, who we're going to be talking about a little bit later. She wrote to Captain McDougall and said, "Isn't this a terrible thing to do to us, as you will make homeless, wandering paupers of all of the women and children of our family? Isn't this too high a price for us to pay for our husband's poor judgment?" So now, Captain McDougall, being a fine gentleman himself, certainly didn't want to be responsible for making homeless, wandering paupers of women and children. So the Sons of Liberty agreed to strike a deal with the Murrays. And that was that if the Murrays would place a public apology in the newspapers for what they'd done, they could be allowed to stay. I regret that I didn't prepare a copy of that apology for you, as I do have one. I'll post it on social media for all of you to see there, those of you follow me on Facebook, and you can see the apology there. I'll post it there for you. They did it. They posted a public apology, which was carried in all of the newspapers. And as a result, the Murrays were not banished from the city of New York. So a great lady, Mary Murray, very wise, I think, in knowing how to handle the men. Well, Mrs. Murray is going to handle the men even better 2 years later in the fall of 1776. Who else do we have? We have some more new people. Baddies Shea 278 from North Carolina. Well, thank you for joining us from North Carolina. And you have snow as well, I think. So good that we're doing a virtual tour and we can all be inside and be warm. So 2 years later, in the fall of 1776, the battle for New York between the British and the Americans was well underway. And a battle began right near the Murray home of Eichenberg in a bay called Kips Bay, the Battle of Kips Bay. Well, the Americans were totally outnumbered in this battle. British had brought warships that morning up into the east, and Hudson's River were firing cannon fire over the town for hours, terrifying everyone, and then executed a massive landing at Kips Bay, not far from Eichenberg. Oh, Miss Silver, I'm telling that story right now. So keep watching. I'm on that story now. Very good for you to remember that that's what she did. So very close to Eichenberg. Now, the huge problem, there's many problems with this, right? The British have ships on both sides of Manhattan Island, both sides of the triangle, and their plan is simply to march from east to west, about where 34th Street is today in your time, and block off the bottom of the island where half of Washington's army is, under the command of General Israel Putnam. So this is a potential disaster for the Americans. If the British can cut that island off and take the bottom half and take all of Putnam's forces, well, the battle for New York, the battle for America will likely be over. Well, Mrs. Murray that morning got up early. She got her beautiful daughters out, dressed them all up so beautifully. Now, you know that since I'm an older lady, I'm always dressed very modestly, but might know that the young ladies at our time wear very, very low necklines, and they have beautiful tiny waists under their stays, and then their big skirts, and they just look so beautiful. Well, Mrs. Murray dressed up a number of her daughters, went out to meet the British commander, General William Howe, and she then offered him and his officers afternoon tea at Eichenberg. Not only did they stop for tea, but the mayor, David Matthews, joined them as well. I should say the loyalist mayor, David Matthews, joined them as well. An incredible sight. So here they are in the middle of the battle, and you can see back here in the painting, some of these ships are still landing. Some of the British ships are still landing at Kips Bay while they are all paying their respects to Mary Murray, having tea and cakes and Madeira and fine conversation. Well, while that was happening, a young major named Aaron Burr, or was he a colonel? He wasn't a colonel yet. I think he's still a major. A young major named Aaron Burr knew his way up the west side of the island, up the Hudson River side of the island, and led General Putnam's forces to the north. They passed the spot where they would have been cut off by the British by just 10 minutes. They got there 10 minutes ahead of the British, and Israel Putnam's entire army escaped, thanks to Mary Murray and young Major Burr. So Mary Murray has become famous for delaying the British that day so General Washington's army could escape. A fine lady, wouldn't you say? Very smart lady, understanding how to use being a lady to her advantage, something we all learn in this time. So Mary Murray. So that would be Murray's Wharf for the Murray family. Okay, let's continue up Wall Street, and we're going to go to Wall and Water Street. So just up a block, and at Wall and Water Street, we find the Merchant's Coffee House. And this, I'm going to confess to you, this is really the Burns Coffee House, because there are no existing prints of the Merchant's Coffee House, but it likely looked just like this and was on the corner there of Wall, Water, and Pearl today. Did the British realize what happened later? I believe they did, and their explanation was that the delay really didn't matter because they hadn't landed all of their men anyway. So they weren't prepared to do the march at that time. So that was their explanation. Miss Frederick says, I love Mary Murray's story. I send Mrs. Q's short video on this to my friends who think women played no part in the revolution. Well, my goodness, Miss Frederick, we will, of course, change their minds about all of that as the year goes on and we celebrate our 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. We have plenty of stories about ladies, very brave, honorable ladies to share. Mrs. Murray being a very crafty lady, smart and intelligent and ladylike. In our time, we learned to be crafty and ladylike. Always want to be ladylike. So the Merchants Coffee House. The Merchants Coffee House is the hotbed of activity for all of the rebel merchants in this town. Very important. My father spent a great deal of time in the Merchants Coffee House. I go to the Merchants Coffee House, as does Mr. Q. They also have auctions at the Merchants Coffee House and other sorts of events that occur there. But one of the most controversial events that happened there, I'm thinking of two events I want to tell you about. Because I'm doing this on the fly, I don't have any notes or anything, just looking at the pictures and talking. In 1761, you may know that the British have had a terrible habit of capturing our fishing boats, taking the men from them, and forcing them to serve in the British Navy. So they basically steal them and imprison them on the British Navy. Now, when that happens, what happens to the family of one of these men who's taken? Who's going to support the family? What is that family expected to do? So this is a really terrible thing that they do. And in 1761, they were caught doing this out by Sandy Hook, which is the entrance to our harbor, or exit if you're going out, Sandy Hook. New Yorkers were so enraged that this had occurred that when the captain of the ship came into New York, they anchor the ship a little bit out and they come in on a smaller boat, right? Come in on a smaller transport boat. When he came into New York, the Sons of Liberty grabbed him and they locked him in the Merchants Coffee House. They refused to allow him to leave until he signed an affidavit that each one of those men would be released. And that isn't the whole story. They took that little boat he came in on, let's find our Ratzer map, and they dragged it from the Merchants Coffee House here all the way up to the Commons. So from the Merchants Coffee House to the Commons, and they burned it. What an act. Are those brave Sons of Liberty or what? Well, the captain of that ship not only signed the release for all of those men, but he left and he said he would never again return to the damn city of New York. So the Merchants Coffee House. A couple of years later, during the revolt against the Stamp Act, oops, that's not the Merchants Coffee House. Excuse me, that's the Merchants Coffee House. A few years later, during the rebellion against the Stamp Act in 1765, we draped everything in black in mourning for the Stamp Act, including bunting on the outside of the Merchants Coffee House. All of the booths and the backgammon tables were draped in black crepe, and the dice covered in black, which meant, of course, you couldn't use them, but just a symbol of our displeasure over the Stamp Act. So the wonderful Merchants Coffee House, hotbed of rebel activity in New York. Someone said that's quite a hike. If you took that walk, sir, you would be walking uphill from the Merchants Coffee House to the Broadway, and then from the Broadway up to the Commons, uphill again. It's uphill all the way. How exactly they did it, I'm not sure, but I suppose enough drinking and enough camaraderie and you can achieve almost anything, right? So, by the way, we're just celebrating the 250th anniversary of Henry Knox moving the cannon from Fort Ticonderoga over the Berkshire Mountains and bringing them to Boston in the winter. So, yes, you can do anything if your heart is truly in it. Okay, let's go up Wall Street a little bit more. Wall Street just down the street from me. So Wall and Pearl or Beaver. So Pearl and Beaver kind of come together right there at Wall Street. And if you go up Beaver Street, you come to Hanover Square where I am. And if you stay along Pearl there, you get to Printing House Square, which is where we find all of our local printers, or at least most of them. All of the big ones are there. And the two major printers that you find there are John Holt and his Journal or General Advertiser. And look at that masthead up there, Unite or Die. That tells you all you need to know about John Holt's sympathies. Mr. Mitchell says, good old Henry Knox. What an incredible, incredible feat that was. And then we have a crowd across the street, Mr. James Rivington and his New York Gazetteer and Weekly Advertiser. Later, he'll become the printer of the New York Royal Gazette or Loyal Gazette or the Royalist newspaper during the occupation. And as you can tell from the two mastheads, the two gentlemen are competitors, aren't they? Up on the top, Mr. Holt has Unite or Die, drawn by Benjamin Franklin, right? The American rattlesnake chopped up and labeled with the colonies. If we unite, we will be as deadly as the rattlesnake. If not, we will die as cut up pieces. So he tells us right there what he thinks about the situation with England. And Mr. Rivington, of course, maintains the king's arms on his paper because he supports the king. So we have the rebel printer and the loyal printer, who not only are across the street from each other and have opposing mastheads, but they also every week banter with each other back and forth. They in their editorials, and of course, people submitting letters to the papers. Now, do not assume in our time that any newspapers are objective. We have no concept of objectivity when it comes to newspapers, pamphlets, broadsides, anything. We do not have objectivity. Everything is opinion. So when you look at this, you know which opinion you're getting. And when you look at this, you know which opinion you're getting, right? So the contributors to Mr. Rivington will support the Crown. Contributors to Mr. Holt will support the rebels. Now, when Mr. Holt put the Unite or Die up on his masthead, Mr. Rivington said, look at this, the symbol of Satan in the Garden of Eden. Why would anyone put that on their newspaper? Symbol of Satan in the Garden of Eden. Well, Mr. Holt responded in his newspaper, well, Mr. Rivington, if that's what you see when you look at this, surely you gaze into a looking glass. And that started off a rivalry between them that is historic in New York City history, with them volleying insults back and forth every week until the Sons of Liberty became so angry at Mr. Rivington that they made an effigy of him and hung it over in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And they got very drunk and had a party celebrating. Well, Mr. Rivington then put an article in his paper with an engraving of his effigy hanging in the tree, calling the men who did that denizens of the lower classes. Lowlifes. And he tells us they're pediculous, lice infested, and they're bacchanalians, naked nature worshipers, inebriated, my phone won't stay straight, inebriated, right, drunk. He says, not on the juice of the vine, but cheap New England rum. And they're clearly incapable of understanding I'm doing my job as a free and honorable printer. What happened to the free press in the land of its birth? Pretty good, right? Mr. Rivington was known for his biting tongue and sarcasm. Well, as a result of that, the Sons of Liberty came for James Rivington, and someone tipped him off, and he hid in his chimney in his shop until they left. He found himself stuck in the chimney yelling for help for hours. His neighbors finally came over, assisted him out of the chimney, and a few weeks later, a radical faction of the Sons of Liberty led by Isaac Sears, or King Sears, destroyed Rivington's printing press, kidnapped him, and locked him up in a jail in Connecticut. He was ordered to be released, which he was, and then he and his family boarded a ship and went to England. And that kind of ended some free speech. It was November of 1775 that ended some of our free speech in the city of New York, and that we no longer had this dissenting voice. And Mr. Rivington did return a couple of years later after the city was under full British occupation. So right there if you're walking around at Wall and Pearl Street, would have been the print shops of James Rivington and John Holt. Those of you who watch the TV series Turn, that is the same James Rivington who also had the coffee house there. So let's see who we find. So 51 Gaming says, to be a fly on those walls, I'd love to hear their exchanges. Well, you know, sir, you can read them in the newspapers. And trust me, no one held back in what they had to say. No one was, no one was self-censoring. It was out there, much more than you do in your time. You might be surprised to hear that. Okay, so let's walk up Wall Street a little bit more. And right here where the star is, you can see a little inset there. And that is our statue of William Pitt the Elder, the Earl of Chatham, former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Prime Minister, and leader of England's radical rebellious Whigs. Mr. Pitt was a wonderful supporter of us here in the colonies. He was against the Stamp Act, the Quartering Act, the other Townsend Act. He was against the Tea Act. He was against the occupation of Boston. And he warned the king to remove the military from Boston because he said the first shot would be mortal and the colonies would be lost. Mr. Pitt was a wonderful friend to us. He advocated that we be given our own parliament so that we could represent ourselves and govern ourselves and send representatives from that government to England. In other words, an experiment in self-rule. He believed that would be the best thing for everyone and that all of those different types of tax schemes were useless, that we would create far more wealth for the British Empire under self-rule. So a great friend to us, Mr. William Pitt. If you're in New York City in the year 2026, remnants of that statue are in the New York Historical Society. And who is next after Mr. Pitt? Oh, we have the City Hall. So where Broad Street and Wall Street cross or intersect, in your time, the New York Stock Exchange and Federal Hall are there. But during the Revolutionary War, that is the City Hall. The City Hall is where everything takes place, right? The Common Council meets at the City Hall. Until the war broke out, the New York Colonial Assembly met in the City Hall. The mayor has offices in the City Hall. Courts are in the City Hall. Trials, there's a jail in the basement of the City Hall. So the City Hall is really the center of civic and legal activity here in the city. And a number of interesting things happened in this City Hall. And one of them has to do with free speech. As a matter of fact, our first big debate over free speech, the trial of John Peter Zenger. In the upper corner is a copy of his newspaper, the New York Weekly Journal, which was published from, I think, 1733. I think this is an issue from 1734 or 1735. And in this issue, Mr. Zenger exposes corruption in the office of the governor, William Cosby. You didn't think corruption was something new to your time, did you? Corrupt government officials? Of course not. So he is every week printing articles that are submitted by people exposing massive corruption in Governor Cosby's office. And as you can imagine, Governor Cosby is not happy about this at all. So he orders that the newspaper, this issue is a seditious libel, right? It's sedition undermining the government, and it's a libel meant to degrade the government. And he orders all copies to be burned here in front of the City Hall. And you can see that's where our stocks are as well. So if you do something bad and get put in the stocks, it's right there in front of the City Hall. So he ordered them to be burned here in front of the City Hall, but for a number of copies to be kept to use as evidence at trial. Mr. Zenger was arrested and he was brought before the court for his bail hearing. And they set the bail at 10 times what Mr. Zenger could possibly afford, which caused outrage among the lawyers that were representing Mr. Zenger, Mr. Smith and Mr. Alexander. By the way, Mr. Smith and Mr. Alexander were defending Mr. Zenger free because what do you think the authors were of the articles in the paper? Mr. Smith and Mr. Alexander, along with their friend Mr. Morris, who had been illegally kicked off of the state Supreme Court by the governor. So it was a trio of troublemakers here writing the articles. Well, they argued that bail was not meant to keep a person in prison, but to make sure that they came to their trial, and that they needed to set fair bail for Mr. Zenger, that this was not what the English system is all about. And they also then argued that one of the new members, judges sitting on the court, was illegally on the court because he had been placed there illegally by the governor, Governor Cosby. And the court said they would rule on their request the next day. The next day, everybody came back. They disbarred Mr. Smith and Alexander from all practice in New York, both civil and criminal. And, and they kept Mr. Zenger's bail intact and sent him back to jail, where he stayed for 9 months while this trial went on. Now, the purpose for keeping Mr. Zenger in jail, of course, was to keep the newspaper from being printed. Well, that didn't work because his wife, Mrs. Anna Zenger, and her apprentice printed the newspaper every week without fail the whole time her husband was in prison. Mrs. Zenger said she would go to the city hall, meet with him at the jail, show him the articles that were submitted. He would pick them, and he would tell her what else he wanted in the paper, and she still put it out every week. Now, when the trial started, the paper also covered the trial as it was going on, as you can see here. The trial was long and outrageous, and really won't go that much into it, except to say that Mr. Zenger's lawyer, who had to come from Philadelphia since our two best lawyers had been disbarred, and it was Mr. Alexander's wife, Mary Alexander, the greatest lady merchant of her time, I should also add, who went to Philadelphia to hire Mr. Andrew Hamilton to come to New York. Mr. Hamilton essentially argued that the old British way, or the intact British way, that a libel was a libel if it was true or false, made no sense. It made no sense to say that a libel, something could be a lie and be a libel just because it hurt someone. He said, if it's true, it can't be a libel. And he asked the jurors, isn't it true that the only way we have to keep a check on these royal appointees is through an open press? And after 9 months, the jury deliberated for 15 minutes, and they nullified the libel law in New York and rewrote it to say that a libel is only a libel if it is knowingly false. If something is true, it's not a libel. And if something is false, but the printer doesn't know it, it's not a libel. So what do you think happened? Well, by the time we get to John Holt and James Rivington, what is that? 40 years later, the newspapers are full of all kinds of things that can't be proved or disproved, and makes the dialogue, very interesting. So the case of John Peter Zenger, which established the free press in the colony of New York in 1735, and later in the United States of America. So we have another interesting trial that is going to take place here. And this is about, 35 years after Zenger, 1770. As a result of this broadside to the betrayed inhabitants of the city and colony of New York. And again, this is a broadside written in December of 1769, exposing corruption in our New York Assembly and in our election process. You didn't think that cheating in elections was new either, did you? So this goes through, talks all about the corruption in our assembly, who's paying who, the corruption in the elections and how it was done. And of course, you can bet that the ruling party in our assembly, the Delanceys, who benefited from all of this, were quite upset by this, and ordered the gentleman who wrote it to be, well, after they found out who he was, I should first say, wanted to know who the gentleman was who wrote it. So they arrested the printer, and they held the printer in Fort George in solitary confinement. And he said, fearing for his life, he gave up the author. And the author was Captain Alexander McDougall, who later will help Mrs. Murray keep her family from being exiled from the city. So Captain McDougall is a self-made man. He's a ship captain. He was a ship captain. This time he's a merchant. He's a very wealthy, influential man, leader of the Presbyterian community. one of the leaders of the New York Sons of Liberty, leader of the Presbyterian Church, I should say, and very well known throughout New York. And he is arrested and he gets a bail hearing in the same city hall. And everybody shows up at the bail hearing. And the courtroom was packed, standing room only, because could it be possible that everyone knew what was going to happen in advance in that courtroom? And that was Captain McDougal, a very wealthy man, refused to pay his bail. He said, I'd rather go back to jail for the cause of liberty and freedom than pay this bail. The courtroom erupted into foot stomping and applause. Captain McDougal was put in the jail in the basement of the city hall. So down here, see those little windows down there? So he's down there and he's going to stay there for 4 months. And virtually every day for that 4 months, his friends will go to the jail and cheer for him. And they will cheer 45 times, the number of his arrest warrant. So some days they cheer 45 times, sometimes they toast 45 times. And on the 45th day he was in jail, the Sons of Liberty started the day by roasting a side of venison with a 45 stamped on it, toasting 45 times, and bringing 45 virgins dressed in white to recite the 45th Psalm in his honor. Well, the Loyalist or Tory newspaper reported, oh, we know the Sons of Liberty are up to their usual lies and deceptions with these purported 45 virgins. We know it's impossible to find 45 genuine virgins in the entire population of this town, especially 45 who appeared to be 45 years old. Well, this fiasco continued until the only witness excuse me, to the authorship of the broadside, the printer, Mr. Parker, died of old age. He died of natural causes, although, of course, the Tories in the town, the Loyalists, claimed the Sons of Liberty poisoned him, so he couldn't be a witness. They didn't do that. And so Captain McDougal had to be released from jail, and the Sons of Liberty had a parade marching him home. And you probably know Captain McDougal went on to serve in the Revolutionary War as commander of the 1st New York Division as General Alexander McDougal. And McDougal Street in your time in the village is named for him. So we have General McDougal. So we're almost to the end of our walk. If we go all the way up to the top of Wall Street, where it intersects with the Broadway, we find Trinity Church. Right across the street from Trinity Church is the Presbyterian Church. So we have the Anglicans and the Presbyterians right across the street from each other, traditional rivals, both in religion and here in New York, especially in politics. So Sunday afternoons on the Broadway at Wall Street can be quite interesting, listening to the banter between the gentlemen of both different factions. So the Church of England, we find the Delancey faction or the Loyalists, and over at the Presbyterian Church, we find the Livingston faction or the Rebel faction. This is Trinity Church, built in 1697 as the Church of England, the Anglican Church, which it will continue to be until the end of the Revolutionary War, 1783. In 1776, when the British took the city of New York, a massive fire burned through Lower Manhattan, and this is all that was left of the original Trinity Church. Very sad for New York. Devastating fire that year. The church was rebuilt after the war, and then that church, the roof collapsed during a massive snowstorm. And the church you see today, if you walk by there in 2026, is the 3rd church built on that site in 1846. Now, after the Revolutionary War, of course, we're not going to be the Church of England anymore, but there are people who are Anglicans who still want to maintain their Anglican beliefs. So the church broke off in America and became the Episcopal Church of America, or in this case, the Episcopal Church of New York. Trinity Church then, and still in your time, owns virtually all of the land from Wall Street to Greenwich Village, from Broadway to Greenwich Street. So through Lower Manhattan and up through Tribeca and Soho and the West Village, all owned by Trinity Church. So many of those office buildings you see today are on land they lease from the church in 99-year leases. Maybe one night we'll just do a talk about Trinity Church and St. Paul's, because there's quite a lot to talk about both of the churches and their graveyards. So that is our tour of Revolutionary War Wall Street. Oh, this bow is driving me crazy. I needed 2 pins. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider helping me out helping me support my live streaming habit. I think some of you might know. Was it last week I couldn't live stream because my Zoom subscription ran out? I had to really quick resubscribe. So as I said, you could join me on Patreon, where among other things, you can learn how an 18th century jacket and petticoat with trim and everything is made according to authentic 1780s instructions. So you'll see that. I might also do some wig styling. And I also am going to be, as I said, putting out my old walking tours. Or you can tip me on YouTube or give me a one-time donation at Venmo or PayPal. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for joining me again tonight. I hope you have a great weekend. I, of course, will be on republicbroadcasting.org this Sunday at 9 p.m. I don't know what the subject matter is going to be yet, but I will be there for you for 2 hours starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, next Thursday, we'll be right back here for Mrs. Q Live. Thanks so much for joining me and for putting up with me having my streaming problems at the beginning. Next week will go smoothly. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you being here for me. You too, Mrs. Healy, stay warm. I think I still have 18 inches of snow here. None of it has melted. It's quite remarkable. It's still powder after 10 days. Although, for those of you, if any of you are in New York City, I am so glad that in 2026, I am not in New York City. That's for sure. Oh, Mrs. Portelli is here. Thank you for joining me, Mrs. Portelli. Let's see. 151 Gaming says, what a fantastic video. I recently subbed on the Culper Spiring video. Thank you so much. I am also going to be, in the coming weeks, months, by summer, releasing my Culper and Mersero spiring lecture. I do a lecture on the two spirings and how they operated throughout the war. And I'm going to be recording that lecture with all of the exhibits and putting that out soon as well for you. And of course, my lecture on Theodosia Burr and her father, Vice President Aaron Burr. So watch for those things. And I'll see you all next week. I hope those of you who are new will come back next week. Join us again. Please like my video and share it with whoever you think will enjoy, this weird woman dressed up like it's the 1700s and talking about the American Revolution. We all have a good time, right? Thank you so much. And I'll see you.